Hi everyone. So today we want to start a new series on contracts. We have found that many people are quite aware of the need to sign contracts. When they do deals, they want to put things in writing, and that's something good to do. But what many people do not do is that once they determine that they need to do that, they ask the other party for a contract, the other party sends it to them. They do not fully understand what has been written there, and they do not ask a lawyer, and then they end up getting into a contract that is very terrible for them. So people do sign, but they sign without understanding of some of the clauses that they are signing. And we often find sometimes that this happens not just in the corporate world, but especially in the world of creatives or talented people. I'm sure you have heard sometimes that, oh, it was a bad contract. He had a bad contract, especially in sports or in entertainment and music. So these are the things that we have found that happen to people, even though they want to do the work seriously and they have a contract, they do not get the required help that they need. So we're starting a series just talking about a few clauses in contracts. We'll look at the most troublesome clauses in contracts that get people in trouble and what they can do about it. So we'll look at them one after the other. And since our first example was about being in a bad deal, the first clause we're trying to talk about today is a termination clause. What is a termination clause? What is termination even in itself? I'm sure you know that termination means the end of something. Why is termination important? If it has a beginning, most likely it has to have an end. And you need to understand what that end will be from the beginning. So the termination clause is something that talks about how to end. It's not just the fact that you should end. Of course, you should be able to end it. But more importantly, the things that people don't look at are, what do I need to end this? How should it end? And what are the consequences for ending it? Most times you already agreed for a fixed term, right? So if you want to leave before that time ends, how can you leave? What can you do? Many people are just happy to see that they are allowed to end it. But if you look at it very carefully, you'll find out that the way to end that thing is also very important. If you are going to forfeit money when you are ending it, if you have to tell them 6 months in advance when you are ending it, you know that it can be a problem. If you are doing work for somebody and you say it's exclusive work for 6 months and then 2 months in, something happens, you even get another job, or you are sick, or something happens that you cannot fulfill it, then you look at the contract and you realize that you already agreed that if you want to end it, you have to tell them 6 months in advance. Then it becomes difficult to leave, and then there are strict consequences attached to your ending it before the 6 month period, if you understand what I mean. So those are the things that can happen when it comes to termination clauses. It's not just that you get a right, but what is entrenched in that right? How much do you have to lose or stand to lose if you decide to make use of that right the way it has been written there? So you might think that it is straightforward, but it is not often straightforward because the details attached to how and when you can leave can break or make you in your work. As you can see, many people get into very bad deals and getting out of it is a lot for them. They have to go to a court, they have to forfeit a lot of money and a lot of other consequences which they fully agreed by themselves when they were getting into that contract, but they didn't really understand it. So typically when you have a termination clause, most times they can be a termination for cause, which is that there's a cause. So if you're supposed to do this and you do not do it, then the other party can decide to terminate. If I give you work and you don't do it and I'm now getting into trouble, I can terminate so that I can even hire somebody else to do it. Or if I'm the one who is supposed to pay you and I'm not paying you and you're not able to buy the materials you need to do the work, you should be able to terminate. So those are the things that are like for cause because they are done because somebody else has breached the term. Now, if you talk about another area, it is termination for convenience, which means that no matter what, either party should still be able to leave, right? It is not slavery, it is not by force. So technically, you can look and say, oh, I got a better deal here. Can I terminate this one? And go for it, just like you would do with a job, right? You get a better job, you give them your notice as appropriate, and then you can move on to the better job. So sometimes the contract will also provide for both costs and convenience that if you do XYZ, we can terminate. If you don't do ABC as agreed, we can terminate. But even regardless of that, either party can wake up and terminate, provided they do this thing, provided they pay this amount, provided they forfeit this thing. So those are the things that people do not look at that then get them in trouble. So if, for instance, somebody has invested in you and they're saying that you need to stay here and work for 2 years so that this investment can come to light and you people decide this is what they've invested and you have not put anything back in return and they are putting so much into you. When you want to leave, then you may need to forfeit one thing or another to be able to leave. Now, what you should be able to learn from this video is that it is not always a bad thing to attach terms and conditions. In fact, if you're the one putting a lot into it, then you don't want the person to go like that. But what is important is that you need to fully understand what living entails. It's not just to wake up and write a letter, I'm not showing up tomorrow. You cannot do that. You already signed in advance that you will tell them 1 month before. You can't wake up and say, I'm moving to another label. What of all of the money that you owe? So if you know that you still have obligations under the agreement and you want to live like that, then you're definitely caught in trouble because the other person is going to rely on the agreement and try and enforce for you to do what you're supposed to do or for them to be able to reduce their losses from your leaving. What you need to learn very quickly is that depending on what side of the contract that you are, you must then seek to protect yourself. So if you know that you're putting a lot into somebody, then you want to attach some terms before they can leave. And if you know that you're the one getting the benefit, then you want to look at what it takes for you to go out. If this is too much for you to handle, for instance, in some employments, they will say you forfeit 1 month salary or you pay back 3 months salary or something like that because that is what they think will suffice for the loss that they will suffer. Now, you might find that your new employer wants you so bad that they will tell you, okay, instead of 1 month, give them 2 weeks to be a decent person, and then I will pay you this extra amount. So, what is important is not that there are strict terms, there will always be strict terms, but you want to know before you go into it if those strict terms benefit you or not, if the consequences are worth it, so that you can then determine, okay, I'll do this, and the worst thing that will happen is that I'll pay this money, and I can understand that. The idea is for there to be an agreement. Contracts are about agreements. And so if you don't fully understand, then you cannot fully agree. And sometimes that might count against you. You might just be stuck in a deal that you cannot leave simply because you did not ask a lawyer and you did not fully understand. I hope this helps. Thank you very much.